before I got the chance to assist. And so I want to do that. And she said, the only way to assist is you have to be a PA, you have to be a nurse practitioner, or you have to be another doctor. And so you can go to PA school, nurse practitioner school, or med school. And I said, but no, that's not the idea I had. The idea I had was I would be my own person and they would call me and I would go in and assist. And the key is that's usually larger than what most people can conceive. And so I realized then that in the state of Kansas that you could just hold it and talk to him. My son, when he was younger, he's 13 now, but this is about probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I was on my phone talking to my mom, and he runs up and grabs my hand and says, "Whose is it? Who is it?" And I said, "It's Nana." And he pulls it down and he looks at it, and he's like, "Well, where's she at?" And I was like, "Well, she's at home." And he couldn't understand while we were talking. He said, "Why are you holding it up to your ear?" Right?
And he's
Wow,
he's written some pretty cool books because he gets lots of 5-star reviews for him. And I will be sure to send some to you since you have a 13-year-old.
that's fantastic.
But I found that the closer, and by the way, Bill Walsh was the one who shared this with me, and I said, "Wow, that completely makes sense." And he says, "If you want to be close to your kids, do what your kids like to do."
Mhm.
Okay, and so I really got very clear that if my son wants to play video games, I got to do
It out. I was like, wow, she was right. And so now let me tell you, if you go through my books, every book in the front dedicated to Edwina Blackman, who helped me see a version of me I never knew possible. I'll go to another country. I'll buy her a gift and send her a gift. This is for you. I wasn't in Dubai. We were in Dubai because it had not been for you, I wouldn't have done it. And so here's okay.
All right. It is January 9th, and we are a few days late having this amazing person on my show. His birthday was January 3rd. This is Dr. Ruben West. I'm Dr. Smiley, and we are amplifying people that are making a positive difference in the world. And he is certainly a leader that not only has a great haircut, but
Hey, here we go.
uses his brain to think about how the world could be better, how things can work better, how people can enjoy life more. And I've seen him speak on stage, and he is one person that brings the whole room in, captivates them, and just has them on the edge of their seat of all the great things you've done. So, Ruben, thank you for spending some time on your birthday week, okay, to
Right.
have a conversation. I've always looked forward to seeing that you're at an event, but today is a big special gift to me because I get to have a conversation with you. So, welcome and happy birthday.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing me in. And just let me say, before we get started, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. I remember asking you how you got this idea, but what was impressive to me and what I want people to get before we even get started is ideas are a dime a dozen. Whenever I speak, I ask the audience, how many of you have had an idea for a product, a service, or an invention, and you thought it was a great idea, but you didn't know how it was going to work, so you didn't take action, and then 2 months, 6 months, 2 years later, you saw that very same thing, and you say, "Wait a minute, I thought of that." And about 80% of the people raise their hands. And so the first thing I want to let everybody know before we get started is not what you think of, it's what you act on. So I'm not only commending you for having the great idea for this, I'm commending you for taking action for this. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm excited. You can see I'm fired up already.
I am, and I'm looking at you as a beautiful partner for the Hair Club because
There we go.
I have my 61st book coming out. You just got a sneak peek at it, but it is 365 days of celebrating not just bald people, but bald leaders that are positive and
Right.
really show up as an inspirational force in the world. And I think what's going to happen after this book is a lot of people are not going to want their hair anymore. I think they're going to shave it.
Yeah, they'll get rid of it, you know. But we do have some they say uh um there is only uh, God gave some people great heads, and the ones that don't have it, he put hair on it, right?
That's
He had to
right.
cover that up, you know what I'm saying? So
That's
we don't have to cover it up. That's great.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, you carry well. You carry very well. Plus, you're looking pretty chic with
Oh, there we go.
So the first question, since my audience, some of them may not know who you are, Dr. Ruben West, is how did you become this amazing person that I call it giving yourself the gift of loving yourself? Like you work on yourself when you love yourself, but you fall in love with yourself enough to give yourself a purpose when you work on yourself. So if you could be kind enough to share where you're born, what your childhood was like, and how it kind of caused you to be who you are today.
Sure. I was born in Topeka, Kansas. I'm from Topeka, Kansas. Um, when you say Topeka, Kansas, most people don't light up and say, "Oh, I'm headed that way," But I had a great childhood. And when you look back, there's all these things you did and maybe some things that you didn't do, but it's really in the looking back that you really see what you were able to experience in your childhood. And for me, whatever I didn't have, I didn't know I didn't have it.
Hmm.
In other words, I had pretty much everything I wanted. you know, and not that we were rich by any means, but there just wasn't a lot of things that I felt like I got to have this, I got to have that because we were more family oriented. I think the one of the greatest gifts I got when I was a kid was a 10-speed bike. And that 10-speed bike, my brother got one too. So we got to ride with the kids in the neighborhood. We spent a lot of time outside. We spent a lot of time playing. And in that regard, we were rich. In other words, we had the friends, we had the family, we got the chance to do things. And so for me, childhood was great. But I will tell you something. My mother is the third oldest of 12. And so her younger sisters, her two younger sisters, they were my aunts, but they were more like my sisters than my aunts because they were just a few years older than me. So in a way, watch this. A lot of times my identity was tied up in being Veronica's nephew, being Melodine's nephew, or being Robbie, that's my older brother's brother. So he's 11 months older than me.
Wow.
So a lot of times when we went places, we'd all go together. My mom, my dad, and the four of us. We'd go to the drive-in movies. And I'll be honest, I didn't even know that you could go to the drive-in movies sitting up. I thought you had to get in the back of a truck with a blanket over your head, but that's another story. We would go to the drive-in movies, but we would always be together. So I'm Ruben, Veronica's nephew, or they would say, that's Ruben, Melodine's nephew. People would introduce me that way. But there was a uniqueness. Listen to this. I had a heart murmur. It was a condition I was born with. It's a defect in the heart where the oxygenated blood and the unoxygenated blood mix. And I used to have to go to Kansas University Medical Center every other year, and then it went to every year because the condition was getting worse.
Hmm.
And uh, the heart murmur, they said, hey, because of this heart murmur, there's certain things you shouldn't do, certain exercise, certain work, and I'm gonna be transparent for everyone listening. I loved that heart murmur.
So
Listen to what I said.
you weren't allowed to do the dishes. I mean,
I don't want like a lot of outside work, a lot of stuff, but not only that, when I had to go to KU Medical Center, which was about 65 miles away from my home, my aunts, my brothers, they were in school. So that was my only time to get to be with my parents by myself. So I would sit in the middle of the car and just put my arms out in the back seat. You know what I'm saying? And I loved it. And then I would go in and they would put me on this table. KU Medical Center was a teaching hospital. And so the student doctors would come in and assess me first, and they deep breath on the side, in the back, hold your breath. And they would listen because a heart murmur, you hear it. It's the swish sound. And I,
versus.
it not being there.
Okay, so it is a switch sound versus not having a
So
switch.
so I loved it. I loved the attention. And then when we got ready to leave, we would always go get stuffed green peppers down in the cafeteria at KU Medical Center. I loved it. And one day, when we went in, the main doctor, because he would come in after the student doctors check you out, and he said, it's gotten bad enough that he's probably going to have open heart surgery. And that was rough. Now, me as a kid, I didn't know what that meant. I knew it was something only from the way my mother and my father reacted to it. Does that make sense?
It does.
And so I remember going back home and I remember saying to my mom one day, Mom, I want a toy. And she's like, What? I said, I want to get this toy. And she's like, For what? And I said, Well, but because I want to have it. And she said, Well, what is the toy? I said, I want the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. Now, if you're not old enough, you don't know this toy, but if you're old enough, G.I. Joe was a whole series, and they had a G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. And I wanted that G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. And my mother said, It's not your birthday. It's not Christmas. It's not a special occasion. No. And let me tell you what I said.
I can feel it.
I just hope I'm alive long enough to get it. I guess what I got, my friend. I got a GI Joe with the Kung Fu grip.
And that thing was hot, wasn't it?
Oh, it's hot. I still have one.
You
I
know,
still have it in my box.
I've noticed you haven't mentioned anything about all the video games you played on your iPhone or your smartphone when you were a kid.
And no, we didn't have that. We didn't have that. We were in the dirt, you know. But I say it to say I used that heart murmur as long as I could
You
to
milk
get
it.
special treatment, to get special concessions, to not have to go outside and cut the grass and do all this stuff. And what I was doing was cheating myself,
Hmm.
right? Because the version of Ruben that's here now, that's an international traveler, that's owned a martial arts school for 27 years, that's been all throughout the country, that's motivating people, inspiring people, telling them to live beyond who they were yesterday. I couldn't have been that person if I kept holding on to that heart murmur. Now, I'm talking to someone already. They don't even know I'm talking to them. The reason I'm telling you is a lot of times we're holding on to old versions of ourselves because we like the special treatment that we get. We tell stories of how this person did us wrong, or they treated us bad, or they wouldn't let me in, or I didn't get this job, or they left me, and on all that stuff. And we get sympathy. Let me tell you something right now. I'm getting fired up. Sympathy is no substitute for action. Come on, Ruben.
Come on.
Sympathy is no substitute for action. In life, you can get sympathy or you could take action. And there's a version of you, just like there was of me, waiting on the other side of feeling sorry for myself, being happy that I didn't have to go out and cut the grass, being okay with guilting my mom into giving me the Kung Fu, the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. Guess what? I didn't know that there was a Ruben that was so great. I could get all of those things without having to go through the sympathy route. And I'm telling someone today, and I just had to tell you that there's a version of you that if you're ever going to step into your greatness, if you're ever going to be the leader you were called to be, if you're ever going to inspire the masses like you know you have the ability to do, you can't keep holding on to those versions of your old identity. Some of those things you're just going to have to let go and trust that God has a better plan for you.
Can I say amen?
Hey, come on, somebody. I know I took them around the mulberry bush, but
Oh,
I had to get
you
that out
did. You
because
did. I have a question about the heart murmur, though.
yes,
Uh, so one question is going to lead to it must have affected you choosing the medical field is one question. Number two, who are some other famous people that had heart murmurs? Is one of them Cristiano Ronaldo? Did he have?
I honestly don't know. What I can tell you is when I do speak, I find a lot of people in the audience that has experienced this same thing. And the thing with the heart murmurs, a lot of times they will close on their own. So
Mhm.
originally, when I went to KU Medical Center, I started going every other year, and then I went to every year because it was getting worse. By the time I went back the last time, it had closed on its own, and I didn't have to have the open heart surgery. But what I will tell you is that it's not that the heart murmur went away, is that the special privileges went away.
Mhm.
I remember the day I went and the doctor said it's healed, it's closed, so it's a miracle. You don't have to come back again. I was like, what did you say? He said, no, you don't have to come back again. I said, well, like in a year, 2 years? I said, no, you could just follow up with your family physician back home. And I was like, wow. And so I remember saying to my mom, I was like, well, let's go downstairs one more time and get the stuffed green peppers. I love doing that. And my mom said, no, we'll eat when we get home. I mean, those privileges ended immediately, my friend. But you know what? A new version of me was born immediately that
Immediately.
day. And so I'm encouraging someone listening right now that there's some things that you're going to have to let go of, and it's kind of like that security blanket, but there's a version of you on the other side of that security blanket that you don't even know it's there, and it's so great. But here's what I found, and I'm going to just say this, and we can move on. The reason a lot of people don't do it, they don't let go. They keep holding on to those same sad stories they keep staying in the same situation. They keep complaining about the same issues and they don't take any action. They just want the sympathy. Is because some people would rather live in known hell than to explore unknown heavens. They don't want to just walk out there. They don't want to just set that aside. They don't want to stop telling that story. They just want to keep saying it over and over because they know what they get from repeating the story. And they get so many people to repeat it to because they meet new people. And guess what happened to me? And guess what they did to me? And guess why I don't like it? And guess what? Right? And so they get this sympathy. But there's a version of you that's much greater than that. And all you have to do is just let go of it and then find you'll find that people like you because you're a great person, that you have a great personality, that you've been called for something different. And here's what you have to look at. There's a version of you that other people see that you don't even know.
So, Dr. West, do you think, I mean, that's very sound in what you shared. Do you think that it accompanies fear and imposter syndrome and obviously being comfortable?
I do think it's that. But what I also believe, remember, I told you at the start of this, is that I was always around my brother. My brother's 11 months older than me. So for 1 year, right now, we're the same age. January 3rd to February 10th, we're the same age. So
Right.
I'd be like, I'm 10 too. You can't tell me what to do. Right. And then I also told you that I was around my aunts who were a few years older than me. And what that did, I realize now, is I was always comparing me to them.
Mm,
They were always better at things than me because they were older than me.
right.
So they're supposed to be better. They got to it first. They were more skilled than me. They were more developed than me. They had more years than me. And so what I kept doing is comparing me at 9 to them at 10 or 12 and 13. It doesn't work, right? Because I always kept feeling like, well, I'm not good enough. I'm not quite this. I'm not quite that. And what I wasn't quite was quite being myself.
Mm,
Just let that go. There is no comparison. Somebody found out that my mentor, my speaking mentor, is Les Brown, and I got a chance to travel to South Africa with him. He invited me to Montego Bay, Jamaica, and London, England. We've spoken all throughout the U.S. And someone said, you know what, man, you're going to be like the next Les Brown. I said, no. They said, what? I said, no, 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 I'm not. I said, there can only be one Les Brown. See, the mistake I think we make is we put ourselves in a comparison space.
mhm,
And so I'm not in competition with anyone. I'm not trying to be the number one motivational speaker. I'm not trying to be the number one inspirational speaker. I'm not trying to be the number one anything. I'm Dr. Ruben West. I'm not trying to be number one. I am the only one. You understand? So once I'm the only one, I don't have to be in competition. I don't have to be fearful because I'm the only one. And so once I've learned that, and it took me a while to learn it, I'm not gonna act like I just got this all my days. It didn't. It took me a while to learn that there's a version of me that they could never be. Yeah, they're older than me. They have these different things that they do better than me. And guess what? As long as I compare myself to Usain Bolt in his prime, I'm never going to be fast. I'm never. You know, that's why I don't compare myself to him. I wasn't born to be a sprinter, you know. But when I step into who I was born to be, uh, uh, that it's hard to compete with that.
well, I think Usain Bolt is going to be listening to this program because he knows that he owes me a photo with a Keep Smiling card because I did the Jamaican bobsled team's fundraiser 2 years and they said that they were going to introduce me to him. So I know it's happening.
Fantastic.
I have two expressions that I want to share with you that are
Sure.
favorites and they remind me of what you just said. So
Hmm.
the me I see is the me I'll be. So if you look in
Mm,
the mirror, the me, and if you see someone else that you're comparing yourself to, you can't see yourself. And so the
exactly.
second one is it's a dorky one, but I do love it. It's be yourself. Everyone else is taken.
They are taken. And once you understand that, there's a level of freedom that comes in that,
Yes, there
right?
is.
Because you don't put those pressures on yourself. I love that. That's good.
So moving forward, you went in the military at some point.
Yeah, I went in the military while I was in high school. Actually,
Did
I
you?
joined. They had just started this new program called the Split Option Program, where you could go to basic training during the summer of your junior and senior year,
Mhm.
come back and graduate, and then go to your military training after your senior year. So my senior year, I was already in the military. I was in the reserves. They paid me to wear my uniform at school and then recruit other people to join the military. And
That's
I
high
was
speed. That's
I
high
was
speed.
very successful at that, by the way.
I bet. I bet. And so, what was your branch?
Army Reserves.
Army
But I
Reserves.
did serve active when we went to the Gulf War.
You did or you didn't?
I did. Our unit was activated. We served in the Gulf War. We were in Saudi Arabia or Kuwait, in Hafr al-Batin, just outside of Kuwait. It was when Saddam invaded Kuwait, and we had those missions. Yeah.
So I met you in DC for a couple of events. Trying to
Hmm.
think of what they were, but I've seen you there, and then I recently saw you about a year or two ago at Becoming the Better You,
Yeah.
with Terrence and Brenda.
Uh-huh.
And you had was it triage that you were doing in the military? What?
What I was a surgical tech at that time, where we passed instruments to the doctors. Yes.
Okay. And I just, I was pre med. I should say I was medical illustration. So 5 years of studying how to draw all those medical
Yeah,
surgery,
yeah.
those detailed pieces. And I,
Like Dr. Netter.
yeah. And when I went to Johns Hopkins, I got to meet my peers. I said, yeah, this is not going to be something I can do. But it was enjoyable to put two of my loves together, science and art. But to your point, you were looking at how this was happening and you said, why can't it be better? So would you share that story? I love how you did that.
Well, when I went to the Gulf War, it was 1991. I was a surgical tech. We passed instruments to the docs. I just turned 22. I was staff sergeant, E6 in charge. And, here we going to war. And when we were there, it's not 9 to 5 at war. It's until the patients stop coming.
Right.
And one of the surgeons said, "Hey, Ruben, I'm going to teach you how to assist because it's not 9 to 5." And so I said, "Great, that's fantastic." So he showed me some things. And when he showed me some things, I said, when I go back to the US, this is what I want to do. I no longer want to pass instruments to the doctors. I want to assist. I want them to be able to call me. I go in, I assist in the surgery, help close up, do whatever, and then we go our separate ways. And I want to be able to do it on my own. I don't want to have to work for the hospital. But when I got back, again, it was 1991 and I was 22 and my director was like, "You want to do what?" I said, "Well, when I was over the Gulf War, I got the chance to assist, and so I want to do that." And she said, "The only way to assist is you have to be a PA, you have to be a nurse practitioner, or you have to be another doctor. And so you can go to PA school, nurse practitioner school, or med school." And I said, "But no, that's not the idea I had. The idea I had was I would be my own person, and they would call me, and I would go in and assist." And the key is that's usually larger than when most people can conceive. And so I realized then that in the state of Kansas it didn't exist, and if it was going to exist, then I had to help bring it into existence. And just to cut to the chase, it took us 10 years.
Yeah.
I met two gentlemen, Ron DeGon from Seattle, Washington, and James Johnson from Little Rock, Arkansas. And I said, what if we and they were both in the military too, right? They're both surgical techs in the military. All three of us had the same idea. And I said, what's the possibility of us coming together at the same time, at the same place, with the same idea? I always say that coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. And I said, and so we have to be able to start this program. And the truth is, we teamed up with a few other people, and we did. We started the program. We wrote the textbook, college curriculum, job description, um, all those things. And we were able to bring that profession into existence in the state of Kansas. And we trained people all throughout the state of Kansas and in different states. And I remember being questioned so many times. I remember one time we were in the medical school library at Wichita, Kansas, and they were like, "What are you guys doing in here?" And I was like, "Well, we're studying for what?" Because they were in med school or PA school. And so, "Well, we're going to be surgical assistants." What does that mean? And so we explained it to them that they'll be able to call us and all surgical specialties. And they said, "Well, nobody's going to do that because even as a PA, we work with one doctor or one physician group. But we don't go from heart surgery to neurosurgery to orthopedic surgery." And it's like, I know, but we'll be able to. And they kept trying to explain to us why that would never work. And and here's what I've learned. It will never work for you, but it doesn't mean it won't never work for me.
Right.
Helen Keller said the only thing worse than being blind was to have sight with no vision.
Right.
And so I didn't worry about what they could see because it was what I could see. I was given the vision. When God gives you your calling, it's not a conference call. There's not five people on the line. So you get the calling and you understand it, but the people outside, they have no idea. And so they always question you. They always can't see it. I don't understand it. I can't see it. You weren't meant to.
Right.
You weren't meant to, right? Now, there's people going to the moon. I don't understand it. I'm not trying to go. It's not my calling. It's not my thing. But it doesn't mean they can't do it. And so the other thing people would always ask me is, how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
That's what they always ask. Well, how are you going to do that? Let me help somebody right now. How is none of your business? I don't know how. You see, because if you ask me now, I can go back and tell you how I did it. But the day I thought of it, I can't tell you how I'm going to do it.
Right.
I'm going to do it one step at a time, just like you start a 1,000-mile journey. But here's what they're really asking you to do. They're asking you to go to the last step. And so I'm going to help somebody right now. You out there, you have a big idea, you know you want to do it, you're not getting much support, and you're wondering, like, what do I do? First of all, we didn't have the resources to bring the profession into existence. So we took the step that we could take.
Hmm.
And then along the way, the resources showed up. Most people say, I'll take action when I get the resources. God says, I'll give you the resources when you take action. If you're not doing anything, what's the need to give you resources? There isn't one. So you don't get it,
You know,
you
what's
know?
interesting to me is that a disruptor or an innovator has no problem understanding why they're the only one. It's just they feel alone. I
Yeah,
mean, that's the only issue is they feel alone. Because if you think about it, the people saying, how are you going to do it? You could respond with saying, everything you're touching, driving, cooking with was someone that said, I'm going to do this. And everyone in the world before that came into existence said, there's no way it's not going to happen.
exactly. And that honestly, that's exactly what happens. But the problem is when you're a visionary, you see what's not there,
Right.
right? And so other people can't see that. They can't even imagine that. Like, well, what are you saying? Like, who's going to let you do that? And my answer was always, it's not who's going to let me, it's who's going to stop me.
Right.
John H. Johnson, the founder of Evity magazine, he said, "There's no dissent against a product or service that meets a pressing public need." So if you're willing to put it out there, if you're willing to go after it, if you bring it into existence, somebody's going to use it. I'm using this cell phone right here. I
Right.
mean, when I was a kid, this was the Jetsons, my friend. This was him talking to Spacely Sprockets. And we were like, man, that's amazing. He's seeing the person on the phone. It did not exist. And then somebody said, well, we're going to make a phone where you could just hold it and talk to him. My son, when he was younger, he's 13 now, but this is probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I was on my phone talking to my mom. And he runs up and grabs my hand and says, "Whose is it? Who is it?" And I said, "It's Nana." And he pulls it down and he looks at it and he's like, "Well, where's she at?" And I was like, "Well, she's at home." And he couldn't understand while we were talking. He said, "Why are you holding it up to your ear?" Right? Because he's always talked on the phone like this.
Right.
That's his reality. We talked on the so I didn't need to see her. I'm saying whatever I'm saying. It's somebody's vision. Somebody's the visionary. And so here's what I want to help you with. If you have a business or an idea that you want to implement and is greater than what you have the capacity to do at this time, don't focus on the last step. Focus on the next step. What is the next step I can take today to bring this idea into existence? And then take that step, and then take that step. And then what happens is people see you and they're like, wait a minute, I'd like to join into that. I, I, I think I could help out with that. I think I can lend some assistance to that. Yeah.
You reminded me of when I spoke to Rudy Rudiger about the guy who went to Notre Dame. Remember?
Rudy,
Right.
right.
I had lunch with him and he said, I said, it's just so amazing that you made this movie. How'd it make you feel? And I talked to him about, his one play in Notre Dame. And he says, what was harder than getting to Notre Dame? And I said, no, please tell me. I mean,
Yeah.
the movie showed how hard it was to get in. He goes, what was harder? Was getting someone to believe that movie was worth making. He said it took 10 years, which is what you just said, 10 years. And if you look at Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about 10 years. He
Yeah.
talks about the outlier.
Outliers.
And
Yeah.
you talk to the average person, and I do say average from a standpoint of a leader that's innovative, disruptive. The average innovative, disruptive person will say, if I knew it took this long, I don't know if I would have done it.
Right, exactly, because they're doing it, right? They're
Right.
not looking at doing it. They're immersed in doing it every single day, and then one day you look up and you've already hit the tipping point and it's starting to happen. And then you get to the end and you have to look back this whole journey and you're like, man, if I knew this from the beginning, I don't know if I would do it. But the good thing is we don't know, right?
Yeah.
It's that naivete that we just go out and I'm gonna do it, right? And then we just start moving along. The other thing I think what happens after you do it is it sets you up to do other things
Exactly.
because you understand the process. And here's what I think most people get stuck. This is important. Most people get stuck because they don't understand the muscle, right? And I saw this illustration and they were talking about the thigh muscles. And if you look at the thigh muscles on sprinters, 100 meter, 200 meter, 400 meter, big, powerful muscles, right? But if you look at thigh muscles on marathon runners, slim, lean muscle. Now, you can't say one muscle is more effective than the other. They were built for different things. And most people who are going to be innovators, who are going to change their lives, who are going out to change the world, they have to have a long-term mental muscle. It's not going to happen overnight. There's certain people that they could jump in and they're great for these trades and investments to make short-term money and hit it fast. And then there's other people that you're really looking at a long-term process, and it's not going to be easy. And a lot of people aren't going to just jump on the bandwagon, but you built your mental muscle for that. So you have to look mentally. Do you have the sprinter mental muscle or the marathon mental muscle? And it depends on what you're building it for.
You know, I love this because I tell people if you're going to do a book, you have to have a marathon muscle. I'm not kidding you. I say you have to have a marathon mentality that you're going to go a year with this book because the book landing is like having a baby and everyone's saying, who cares? It's a baby. It's cute, but it's a baby. But when you carry that book everywhere and you're showing the book everywhere, all of a sudden that tipping point happens and you become relevant because the book made you that.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And then you've talked to people about it. You've said it. We created a patented suture and tying kit to teach surgical knots and stitches.
Right.
And everybody told me, well, who's going to buy that? And how are you going to do it? You're not a doctor. You're not a PA. I mean, why would they buy it from you? And then it ended up at the KU Medical School bookstore being sold. And you have no idea all the people I showed the blueprints to and all that stuff and would tell them, hey, this is what it's going to be when it finally comes to fruition. But then once it happened, all those people's like, well, I want one. I want to get it. Show it to me. Where can I get it? Where can I find it? But I'd already enrolled them in the process while I was going through the process of figuring it out.
Yes. So from the military, and you're still doing this business, obviously, and you went into having a martial arts school. You're also an author of how many books?
10 plus,
10 plus.
10
Okay.
plus. Yeah, 10 plus.
I got to buy like nine. Sorry about that.
You have so many. I mean, my goodness.
You got a couple books behind you too. So talk about when and why you did your first book and what kind of difference that made for you.
When I did my first book, uh, I really wanted to put my story out there, and I really wanted to let people know that things were possible. That
The
it
name of the
really
book?
wasn't a what, huh?
Name of the book?
A destination mastery. Taking your yeah, destination mastery. And I wasn't trying to be rich from becoming an author or selling all these books. I just wanted to put it out there to show people that these things were possible. If I could do it, they could do it. And that the other thing is I wanted people to see, and I still do. Obviously, there's very famous people that write books. And so you can go get Colin Powell's book. You can get General Schwarzkopf's book. You can get Madonna's book. You can get Michelle Obama's book. Like there's Oprah Winfrey's book. There's all these people's books. But what I believe is some people can read the book, but there's still a disconnect because they don't think I could ever be that person. I mean, that's great, but Oprah is a billionaire and I could never be that person. So I wanted it to be an initial step to say, okay, look, I'm not that person. No, I'm just Ruben from Topeka. And everybody started somewhere. And even if I don't ever get to where Oprah is, I've still made significant strides in where I started at. And guess what? If I can do it, so can you. How do you do it? One step at a time. I think you have to decide what it is you want to do. Um, I think people do things, but it's not necessarily things that they're aligned with. A lot of times when people don't know what to do, they copy other people. And so I believe that you have to get your alignment before you get the assignment, right? You get aligned with your purpose, who you are, what you can do, what you're good at, what your gifting is, and then you're given the assignment. It's just like take a sports athlete. Once they understand that they're a running back and they do all the drills that running backs do, now they get the assignment. You're going to go in, I ride 35 North, go get in there, right? But until they understand all of that, they can't just put them in the game. And a
Mhm.
lot of people want to be put in the game. And here's, ooh, this is good. The truth is we just get thrown in the game of life. And when you're thrown in the game of life, you just play whatever's there to be played. It doesn't mean it's right for you. It doesn't mean it's necessary for you. It doesn't mean it fits you. You just get thrown in the game. And a lot of people are in the game right now and they're doing great things, my friend, but they've really just been thrown in. Right, right. It's not what they're great at. It's not what they've been called to do. And so this chair, I'm sitting on this chair right now, and I can stand on this chair and talk to people way in the back of the room, and they could hear me. But it's still not what the chair was meant for, though. I'm still using the chair out of context. Just because it works, it doesn't mean that's what it was meant for. And a lot of us, just because what we're doing is it works, it doesn't mean that is what we were meant for. And then some of us, it was meant for us at that time, but that assignment is really over and we're still doing the same thing. And so it's not that we're doing anything wrong, but you could be doing the right thing too long. That assignment is passed. I'm still not a surgical tech. Although it's what I wanted to do, been there, done that. I'm not still doing it. You understand? So certain times we have to transition into our next. Yeah.
So I'm
Alignment,
having,
assignment.
so I'm having a couple light bulbs go off here. So
Yes.
one of the things, I don't know if you know this about my son, but he's 11 and he's written 14 books, and
Wow.
he's written some pretty cool books because he gets lots of 5-star reviews for them. And I will be sure to send some to you since you have a 13-year-old.
That's fantastic.
But I found that the closer, and by the way, Bill Walsh was the one who shared this with me, and I said, "Wow, that completely makes sense." And he says, "If you want to be close to your kids, do what your kids like to do."
Mhm.
Okay, and so I really got very clear that if my son wants to play video games, I got to do video games every once in a while. If he wants to play
Right.
soccer, I got to go play soccer with him. But whatever it
Right.
is, I'm getting close to him. Well, I found in the most recent book, the 14th book, it was called Conversations with the One You Love. And so he asked me 50 questions. I answer him. Asked 50 questions. He answered, and then we reversed it. We asked each other's questions. My point is, Dr. West, is I feel the more you get to know your kid, the less puberty affects the disruption of parenthood, because you understand, because it's a relatedness issue, puberty. Well, the second part was when you were talking about your point of the disconnect. I'm trying to circle back. What was the last thing you were saying? Because I want to make this point.
I was just saying that it's not that you're doing anything wrong, that you could do the
Yes,
right thing too long. Yeah.
exactly. So it's apparently 75% of people are walking this planet saying, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And to your point about alignment, the more aligned you are, the more you figure out why you're here, what makes you happier, your purpose. I think the lower your midlife crisis is.
Right. Right. Because what is the crisis? The crisis is you feel like you're missing out on something. You feel like you didn't get something. You feel like I've got to go back and, especially for men, they always show us a midlife crisis with a sports car or some young woman or something like that. Um, as if it's something that we missed out on. And and that I get it. And I'm not trying to downplay anybody's um, midlife crisis, but I think the reason that it's a midlife crisis and you try and go backwards is because there's not enough pulling you forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't imagine me going back to that. I don't. There's no car. I drive this. I love my car. I've had it for 13 years. I don't want a different car. It's paid off. It's covered. I got the forever warranty, and I'm gonna drive it until the wheels fall off, and then I'm gonna make them put them back on. Yeah, like I love my wife. I don't want another woman. I don't want no, no, no. I just want to stay with doing what I'm doing. But there's so much I'm doing in the future. Like there's so much I want to bring to the future that I don't have the desire to go back. Even I was just looking through my high school yearbook. We're coming up on a 35, 40 years, and I'm looking through the information, and I appreciated it all. And I saw pictures of me, and I said, "Man, that was great." When somebody said, "What would you do if you if you could go back?" I said, "I wouldn't. I don't want to go back and do that. I don't. Because while I was there, I enjoyed it. When I was in the military, I enjoyed it. All the stuff I do, I try and do to the fullest while I'm doing it, so
Yes.
that when it's time to move on, it's time to move on. And so at this stage, the things that are in my past, I don't want to go back and do. I want to focus on what things I can bring to the future.
Well, since you are being honored on your birthday week, I wanted to ask how or when you found your purpose and how you use
Mm,
that purpose to make a difference in the world, because that's actually why I chose you,
mm,
because you know your purpose and you use it very
mm.
well.
Let me tell you who I am. I'm a balanced, empathetic, sensitive leader, connecting on a divine level, creating new opportunities, and guiding millions toward their God-given dreams. That's who I am all day, every day. And I remember being in surgery. That's after we created the surgical assistant profession. I'm working, everything's going great. We're making this money. I said we were going to do it. People didn't believe it, and we're doing it. And then this nurse, her name was Edwina Blackman. She said, Ruben, let me talk to you. I said, okay. She said, you could speak to people. And I was like, what? What? She said, you could speak to people, right? I said, what does that mean, speak to people? You could talk. Do you not see how people gather around you when you're speaking, like nurses and doctors? And I was like, no, because to me, I'm just talking. She said, yeah, you can speak to people. You could change people's lives. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. Where did she come up with that? Like she's way off. And she would come to me daily and she'd be like, you can speak to people, you can change people's lives. One day I was speaking to a group and I didn't notice that I was just talking. And then she was behind them getting my attention. And she's like, look. And then I realized all these people were around me listening. Like I'd never seen it from that perspective. I'd just seen it from this is what I do. I had never seen it from, man, they're actually listening to me. And then I remember thinking, what if she's right? Oh, what if I can talk to people? Better yet, what if I was created to talk to people? What if I was created to talk to make a difference and to talk to crowds and to get people to take action? Henry David Thoreau was asked at the end of his life, if you could come back as anyone throughout history, who would you like to come back as? And he said, I'd like to come back as the man I never was. Wow. Listen, thank God for Edwina Blackman, who could help me see a version of Ruben that didn't exist at that time. I feel like the greatest tragedy in life is running into the person that you were supposed to become. And so I'm so glad that I don't have to run into a person who's out there meeting world leaders and changing lives and thinking, man, I was supposed to do that. I was supposed to go after that, but I didn't because I had a heart murmur and I traded it in for a GI Joe with a Kung Fu grip. No, I had to let all that go. And so for me, when she told me those things and I tested it out, I was like, wow, she was right. And so now let me tell you, if you go through my books, every book in the front dedicated to Edwina Blackman, who helped me see a version of me I never knew possible. I'll go to another country. I'll buy her a gift and send her a gift. This is for you. I wasn't in Dubai. We were in Dubai because it had not been for you, I wouldn't have done it. And so here's what I want to tell someone. You can speak to the world or you could speak to a world changer, and the result is the same. She didn't go out and talk to thousands of people. She didn't. She talked to one person. Her job, she did her job. Her job was to get me to see that you're supposed to be out there making this difference, and she did her job. Now it's my job to do that job. Yes.
So I'm connecting some dots with something, believe it or not, the amortization rate of paying a house off, the death rate of paying your house, and not being aligned. So the more aligned you are, the more you're moving time to your favor to enjoy what you're supposed to be doing in life. Otherwise, you're just waiting until it might be too late to meet yourself. Am I kind of with it?
You're absolutely right. And not only that, you're seeing people living the life that you were supposed to live.
Mm-hmm.
See, that when I say the greatest tragedy is running into the person you were supposed to become, that's only when it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to see them when you're younger, and then they're supposed to inspire you. And like, I want to be a scientist. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a XYZ. That you see, people see that and it lights them up. Like, I didn't know I was supposed to do that because I never knew that existed. And now I want to do it. Like I told you, the surgeon said, let me show you, I'm going to teach you how to assist. And I'm like, my God, I want to do that. You see what I'm saying? And then I did it for that period of time. And then while I was assisting, she said, do you see how you talk to people? Like you can go do this. What? Me? I can go. You see? And then somebody else said, Ruben, you were called to talk to a handful. And I was like, what did you say? That wasn't happy for me because my mentor is Les Brown, and I had a video of him speaking in the Georgia Dome in front of 80,000 people. And so
Okay.
I wanted to go talk in front of 80,000 people, not because of an ego, but I just felt like if I had that many people in the room, I could make that great of an impact. And
Mm-hmm.
she's telling me, no, you were actually called to speak to a handful. What? And that hurt. And I'm like, "Hey, you're missing me. That's not my calling. No, I'm supposed to talk to the room full." And then I started getting invitations to meet with world leaders,
Right.
presidents, vice presidents, prime ministers. And when you go in the room, my wife and I was just in Liberia, and we got an invitation to meet with the vice president, and then we got an invitation to meet with the president at his home. And guess what? There was only a handful. And when I was in there, I talked about these projects that we wanted to do in this country, and the energy projects and the waste to energy projects, and then some ideology that can be given to the whole population. And what happens is when you're talking to the leadership and you inoculate them with the idea, they can inoculate the whole country. So you don't have to settle for a room with only 80,000 people. Come on, somebody. And so I realized that what I thought was a small assignment was really the big assignment, right? I thought a handful, that's a small assignment. No, that's the big assignment. And so I'm excited to say that even as I started talking to people, I've had to evolve that idea to realize that the people that I'm going to talk to are running the world. Very powerful, my
Well,
friend.
Dr. West, I have to say that I'm almost surprised because when I heard you say that she was said that you were destined to speak to five people, I saw you saying, "Well, who are those five?" And because to me, your mind works with, "Well, tell me who I'm going to change the life of." And it's true. If you have five people, if you're able to pick those five, or the five are the people that, and you know as well as I do, it's the 199 rule. If you're talking to the 1%, you are actually talking to the 100.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
exactly.
so I have two questions about, I guess, your journey,
Hmm.
mainly with authorship. And then
Yeah,
I'd like to close with those five magical trivia questions. Is that
sure.
cool? All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the two questions about authorship. One is, what is your favorite book of the 10 and why that you wrote?
The favorite book of the 10 that I wrote is probably the one that I told you about, Destination Mastery.
So your
And
first one is the one you give to
yeah,
people.
because I really got to be transparent in that book.
Mm-hmm.
There are really funny moments in the book, that shaped me. But then it also led to me meeting people. Like I told you, my friends Ron and James, I met them, and then I met my friend Kevin, and we wanted to start this. We started a medical staffing company and a surgical assistant company and a surgical assistant company and all these companies, but we didn't know about business. My friend Kevin had a business degree, but we didn't. So he started us. We got a book club. I hate to call it that, a bunch of guys, but we just said every month we have to start reading these books. And so every month we could recommend a different book and the company would buy the book. And then we just start to evolve our knowledge, good
Mm-hmm.
to great, the millionaire next door, E-Myth Revisited, all these different books that we would recommend. And then what would happen is our conversations would change. The way we thought changed, like all these things. So you see the power of the reading. And I even talk about that in my book because I don't want people to think that I didn't use other people's books to get to where I am. Somebody asked me if you could pay, how much would I pay to have a conversation one on one with one of my favorite people? I say, like who? Like Colin Powell? Yeah. How much would you pay to have a conversation with him? I was like, well, whatever it took. Would you pay 1,000? I'd pay 3,000, 5,000. And he said, well, you do know he has a book at Barnes and Noble and you could just go buy it for 15 bucks. So if you really wanted to talk to him, you just go get the book. And I was like, that hurt, right? But then I started using it, right? Because they all put this information in the book. So I would say it has to be my first book.
Good, good. Well, I love Sidney Poitier's book for that reason. That is a
Hmm.
beautiful book. Of the 10 books, then, since you've written 10, do you have another book coming out?
I have considered another book. I just finished a book called Campaign Civility, How to Win the Hearts of the People to Win the Election. The reason I put that book together is it's very in line with who I am right now. So as I go to different leaders and they have elections coming up and they, excuse me, have different issues in their country, it allows for me to now show them here's some strategies to help move your country forward.
That's so
And
important.
let me give you this book. Yes.
I applaud you for that because some people don't realize that the wrong leader might have been elected because they didn't have the right campaign.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's
A-
so
and then even if you do get elected, if you it's a difference between getting elected for the leader of the people using a collective strategy than a divide and conquer strategy. Because now that you got elected, half the people hate you.
Hmm.
And now you got to figure out how do I bring them back together. And oftentimes there's not a way because of what happened during the election. So I talk about principles like attack the problem, not the person. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
no, I don't need to go into that. But yeah, I like that book.
Yeah, and even you becoming clear of what would not only win you the campaign, but that you would be able to serve that message of the campaign to be more effective as that leader.
And win the hearts of the people.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that is so beautiful. So since you've done 10 books, uh, like in a minute, could you just say the title so people can hear them? As many as you like.
Yeah. So I have a series called Live Your Best Life because that's my mantra, live your best life. So I have Live Your Best Life, uh, Stories of Triumph, Live Your Best Life, Walk by Faith, Live Your Best Life, The Time Is Now, Live Your Best Life, The Advantage of Disadvantage. I love that one because I talk about, and I brought some people in on that book as to how they used a disadvantage to their advantage. You've never seen a heavyweight boxer that grew up rich and just said, "Hey, I'm gonna just put this caviar down and run to the gym." No, 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 that's not what happened. They used their situation to their advantage, right? And so then I have campaign civility. I have the surgical first assistant. Um, I can't think of all of them off the top of my head. You
I'll
put me
tell
on
you
the
what. Well, that's the good news. You have 10, so people can look you up on Amazon. And how do people reach out to you? How do people connect, follow you, whatever?
They can look me up on any social media, or you could just type my name in the internet. I've done enough now that if you just typed in Ruben West, it'll come up.
Very good. So I would like to encourage you, based on the fact that we are a little similar in age and a similar in haircut and
Yeah,
similar
there,
in mindset.
there you go.
I never put my face in the front of my books. I did 60 books. I told you my 61st coming out. My 60th book, I finally put my face on the front cover because it was my first time I wrote my memoirs. So
Ah, got it.
I would like to encourage you, and as a publisher, I'd like to apply for the position. No pressure, of course, at all, but I would like to apply to say you have so much of a gift that you almost need to make a best of everything you've done, and your memoirs would best do that. So I wasn't planning on saying that, by the way, Ruben. This is just
Ah,
it comes out of hearing you say
yes,
of all this information, all these chapters, and it's just I think it's your time to do your memoir, whether you do it with me or not. I think it's a beautiful assignment for you now.
fantastic. Thank you, my friend. Thank
So
you.
five quick trivia questions. You ready?
Sure, got it.
All right. So the elaboration that you make is as short as you can make it. If you make an elaboration, just make a short elaboration. So here we go. A book that changed your life.
The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey.
Amen.
Yeah,
Book that movie that inspires you.
I would say it's uh, the Black Panther. Black Panther. Yes,
A song that gets you going.
the song that gets me going. Man, there's so many,
Okay,
but
you can pick two or three.
no, no, I'm gonna give you one. I don't know the exact title, but I'm going through the words.
Tell me the words.
Um, it's when I think of the goodness of God, but I don't know if that's actually the title of the song. Um, but I have it right here on my phone. So you keep asking me the next
Well,
question.
here's the good news. When we put the show out, you can put in the comments section and we can give them a nice little plug. Who's your hero?
Okay,
Who's your hero?
I think my hero was my grandfather. My father's father. That's my hero. A lot of stuff I've done, I keep his words to me and our final conversation, if you will, in my head.
And what is a quote you live by?
What looks like the end of the road is really just a bend in the road if you're willing to make the turn.
So I'm going to show you the card. My friend Ed Caldwell did a book with me called World Power. And I've been
Yes.
trying to exercise showing a word a day. And I learned the English language when I play with Ed Caldwell. So
Okay.
the three of spades, the third day since you were born the third,
Uh-huh.
accolades, awards as an acknowledgement of merit. Doesn't mean you don't know the word, but there are people in the audience that they need to use this word more. They need to go for that word.
Right, right, right.
Is there a word you'd like to share with the audience today?
Uh, Oh, sorry. You see, I was trying to find that song. A word I would like to share with the audience. I would say civility.
Mm.
Um, and civility is the simple version, treating people the way you would like to be treated, but the expanded version, the pathway to peace. See, everybody, when I go around the world, people want peace,
Mm.
right? But they don't understand that peace is a destination and civility is the transportation to get to the peace, right? So it's civility.
The reason I have a keep smiling movement, sir, is because I feel a smile is a universal expression towards civility.
I agree. You're absolutely right. You're
And
absolutely right, my friend.
and to your point of visiting all these world leaders and just traveling, is that travel is the extermination of discrimination.
Exactly. Open doors, open minds.
Yes.
I
God
love it.
bless you, Dr. West. I'm
Thank
so
you, my
glad.
friend.
Thank you for making the time. I know your time is very valuable, and I've seen firsthand that you give your time very freely to make a difference in the world. So that's why I chose you to be on the Dr. Smiley Show.
Thank you, my friend. You have a great day, and I appreciate it. And hello to all of your audience members, and thanks for tuning in.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, my friend.